The Franco-Prussian War of 1870 to 1871 is what brings Germany together under Prussian auspices as a nation-state. When the French government is defeated in the Palace of Versailles, the whole document, the treaty, and the agreement to unify German state is signed there. And the Prussians now have a lot of popular support. They have a lot of support among other kings and so forth, the local kings. And so in 1871, Germany becomes a nation. And the Prussians, of course, unify the country through warfare and through that pragmatic politics of Bismarck. And, of course, Bismarck's pragmatic politics become state policy. They become very influential around the world, and a lot of people start doing this style of politics. Unfortunately for France, though, it is really disunited. We see the fall of the Napoleon III. We see another republic, decline of that republic, a fall of that republic, another republic. I mean, France is a bit of an unorganized mess. Very important that there's a lot of anger in France over the loss of war to the Prussians. There's a lot of continuing frustration from the French Revolution, a lot of social division. So in 1871, we have the formation of a new municipal government. In Paris, there is a great sense of betrayal felt by people. And so we see the election of a government in Paris called the Paris Commune, which was organized in 1871, and it is to administer France, or Paris rather, as an independent republic, independent from the rest of France. And socialists and all kinds of radicals were involved in the Commune. It is, of course, put down very brutally by the army, so this very short-lived Commune is very influential in European politics and history, certainly all around the world. I mean, socialists in America in this period are praising the Commune and speaking out in support of it. And many refugees of the Commune are welcomed among the socialist communities in New York and Latin America and all around the, North America. So we have a French Third Republic here, but still a lot of bickering, a lot of division. And this is really shown in something that happens in the Third Republic. There is a growth of a new kind of sort of nationalism, a new kind of anti-Semitism. This very conservative nationalism is, if Romantic nationalism was about who was included in the nation, the ethnic nationalism, a very important term, ethnic nationalism in this period is all about who is excluded and what ideas are excluded from the nation. So in the Third Republic, in the 1890s, we see one of the indicators of this style of politics and the growth of a whole new set of pseudoscientific ideas about race. And, it was called eugenics, and it was very popular in America, too, as we'll talk about that when we get up in the 20th century, especially when we get close to the Hitler era and fascism and Nazism. But in 1894, we have an event called the Dreyfus Affair. One of the biggest questions for Jews in Europe in this period was assimilation. The idea that Jews should try as much as possible to assimilate into the nations where they live, that they should be able to take on the dress and the clothes and all that stuff of the prevailing nation and, still keep their religion, although there was disagreement over that. So Alfred Dreyfus is a French Jew who has assimilated and been, brought into the leadership of the French military. He is actually convicted of passing a secret information to the German army. However, it becomes apparent that Dreyfus didn't do it. The reason why he was accused is because he was Jewish. So he is being excluded from the French nation in this period. In other words, France is uncomfortable with its identity. It is wanting to decide who is French and what ideas are French. So Captain Dreyfus is basically persecuted because of this. And the state really gets together, political conservatives, the French Catholic Church, the army, these very nasty anti-Semitic newspapers all chime in and talk about how the Dreyfus was guilty. And Dreyfus is sent to one of these penal colonies. He is pardoned eventually, and in 1906, a civilian court sets aside the results of both of his military trials. He was tried twice, but it becomes something very important in European politics, the politics of race, and especially of anti-Semitism. Before Nazi Germany, if you would have asked anybody in Europe where it would be the most likely that Jews would actually be persecuted and killed, they would have said France or Russia, not Germany. But this becomes, nevertheless, a new kind of politics, which we will certainly come back to. And it also shows the deep divisions in the French Third Republic. The Habsburg Empire, of course, is having a real problem in Austria. With the unification of Germany, they have to do something. They have this big German-speaking neighbor next door. Now Germany, under the Prussians, is officially Lutheran. It's officially Protestant. So the Habsburgs really feel like they have to do something to provide a sort of a bulwark or a balance of power against Germany. So they decide on the settlement of the dual monarchy. In 1861 to 1867, the Austrian kingdom becomes the Habsburg Empire, the dual monarchy of Austria-Hungary. Franz Joseph, the monarch of Hungary, is actually crowned the king of Germany in Budapest. They have a common monarchy, an army, foreign relations, but of course Hungary is the uneven partner in this relationship. And Austria, of course, eventually starts to feel like they have to expand further eastward into Slavic territory, of course claimed by Russia. And that's how the First World War starts. So what we see in Eastern Europe in a lot of places is what your textbook on 555 to 556 calls the unrest of nationalities. There was a lot of ethnic diversity in Eastern Europe, in the Ottoman Empire, in the Habsburg Empire now itself. There are a lot of people like Magyars, Hungarians, different people who want to rule themselves. Romantic nationalism is still certainly an issue here. So there's going to be a lot of trouble in this area. Also, of course, racial thinking, i.e. anti-Semitism and things like that, become increasingly important. In Russia, there is after the defeat in the Crimean War, there is an attempt under Alexander II to actually carry through some reforms. As you see there in the chapter, serfdom is abolished in this period. There is some reformation of local government and the justice system. There is some military reform. But to go along with that, there's not enough reform. There's a lot of repression in Poland, which is not allowed to be a different nationality. So what we see in Russia is an absolute refusal to try to reform or negotiate, which leads to revolutionary activity. When the state does not respond to the demands of its population for reform, when it continues to lock people out of the state and doesn't allow democracy, doesn't allow representation of different groups or classes or nationalities or whatever, often you see what happens in Russia. Revolutionary, non-statist political activity. Revolution, terrorism, they are both the last resorts of people who are locked out of the political process and of the state. Not all terrorism, but a lot of it. A lot of terrorism we talk about now is a bit different, but we'll talk about that towards the end of the semester. So we have revolutionary movements on page 558 in Russia. Populism is one. Sort of an idea that the Russian peasantry has all the answers, and we need to set up, these large village communes. You also see the rise of, social revolutionaries there. You see groups like Land and Freedom and the People's Will. The People's Will is a terrorist organization. They throw bombs and they actually assassinate Tsar Alexander II. You also see the rise of socialism in Russia during this period, and of course, which eventually leads up to the Russian Revolution. We'll have a couple of czars to go before the revolution. In the case of England, there is a Second Reform Act, which tries to deepen the franchise to allow more people to vote and take part in the state. And, of course, the Irish question becomes important. There is a growing movement in Ireland for what they call Home Rule, where the Irish will no longer be under the thumb of the British, but will actually be allowed to control their own local government. There is a big split in the British Empire over this. There is a rise of new sort of democratic politicians like Charles Stewart Parnell on page 5661, which are trying to get rights for the Irish in England. It's a very difficult situation. Of course, we'll certainly return to the Irish question. But in the end, what happens is that conservatives attempt to try to stop things as they are and not allow any more reform. So Ireland is still in this period an open question, as it will be all the way up to the First World War when there's a revolt in Ireland. So certainly what we see, a pattern in Europe of government refusal to try to, in most places really, even in democratic places like England, a government refusal to try to deal with these problems, which encourages the growth of alternative politics and in some case even revolutionary politics and terrorism.